Hey, how you guys doing, man? We're back again with another episode of the It Factor. And as always, I'm your host, Jeremy Robinson. And today we have somebody special. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Siarra Turner. I am a fellow podcaster. I host a podcast called Prepare for Landing, which is a travel podcast that explores the transformative nature of travel, asking, people if they were prepared to land not in a different city, but as a different person. I also work for the United States federal government, currently working in human resources. Been working for the federal government it'll be 13 years in July.
Oh, congratulations.
Not all of it was in human resources, though, which I'm sure you'll will dissect later.
Already went in there and dissected some things. Like, all right, let's see what you worked at. Let me see how I'm going to measure these questions up. So with that, man, first off, like I asked, before we started, man, how are you today, man? Like, how everything been going? Need to be COVID, all the crazy things that have been going on in the world. Like, how have you been?
For the day overall, it's been pretty good. The human resources job I'm in, I just started at the top of the year, so it's pretty much been training. Today, I feel pretty good in terms of health. I just got my booster shot. So tomorrow, let's hope I still feel okay and that there's not a lot of side effects with this booster shot. But if so, I got my Tylenol, I got my Jesus. So, I think I'll be pretty okay. Overall, let's say for 2022, been feeling pretty good. And like I said, started the new job. So that's really been the greatest thing about starting 2022. That was a goal of mine to get into human resources. So to start it at the top of the year has been a dream, honestly.
Man, 20 days in, we lit, man.
Right.
So, first off, I would like to say I'm from Fort Valley, Georgia, man. So back there, I saw that you went to Fort Valley State, and I knew my frat brother, I knew that you went. I knew how y'all had to meet. I was like, how did they probably meet each other? Trying to figure that out. But like, my first question would be like, what went into you choosing Fort Valley State?
That one's easy. My father went to Fort Valley. My mother went to Fort Valley. My paternal uncles went to Fort Valley. Cousins went to Fort Valley. So kind of had to go to Fort Valley. Right. I don't say that to besmirch my alma mater. Maybe that's how I felt at 18, but that's definitely not how I feel now. My entire household, so myself, my brother, and both of my parents all have degrees from the Fort Valley State University. And that's something I won't lie, I am really proud of, that, we can say as a family, we all rock and Wildcat, So it was always understood that Fort Valley State University would be one of the schools I would apply to. As to why I eventually chose that school, ultimately, out of all of the acceptances that I got, they had the greatest package for financial aid and scholarships. I was going for free on the Hope Scholarship, but then Fort Valley was offering me all of these other scholarships that these UGAs and, these Valdosta States, great schools, were not offering. I was like, I think I'm gonna go where the money is. And then also legacy. So
I respect that, man. So legacy and also them having a great package. And in that, I would say, how did you go to the point of saying, okay, psychology and English, how did you get those down to the mere factor?
Okay. Originally, I went to Fort Valley on a mass communications ride because I write. I feel like that was one of my gifts that I was born with. I write all the time, mostly poetry. And I was like, well, my parents told me you can't really make money off of being a poet. So I said, okay, well, I'll be a journalist. So I went to Fort Valley majoring in mass communications, and that lasted for a semester. It's not that I don't love journalism, but journalism really wasn't the type of writing that I wanted to get into at that time. I wanted something a bit more creative, which, that lets you know kind of the limited knowledge I had about journalism at the time. Psychology was a class that I thrived in high school. And so I said, well, let me explore this because I am fascinated by the way people think, individuals as well as groups. So I just decided to pursue psychology, and it turns out I love psychology. Like I said, I really adore the way people think, and being able to apply that in just the many different sectors of life. English came because I finished my entire psychology track within 3 years, and I needed something to kind of finish up. Because I guess I felt like I needed to stay, and I already had enough tracks in English to major in English. So I just took a semester and took my major courses in English to, get a second major out of that, and that's how psychology and English happened.
That's amazing. Straight genius, man. That's amazing. That's amazing. So how did that apply to, your occupation now? Like, your day-to-day job. Now that you just position, how would it apply to it?
Gotcha. Not at all. Like, I will say, I kind of grew up on this mindset that, okay, you go to school, you go to college so that you can get a career in your major or in your degree, right? So originally, getting a degree in psychology, the plan was to go to graduate school to earn a PhD in social psychology. I really wanted to study memory. Well, I got rejected from all 5 graduate schools that I applied to. So that did not happen. I waited a year, and then based off conversations that I had with my mother, she said, Siarra, when you reapply, you need to reapply based off your passion, which is writing. So I went back to school and got a master's degree in creative writing. But again, none of these tie into the job that I have with the federal government. Well, when I didn't get into graduate school, I had a job at a shoe store. So I had a retail job. I was studying to be a manager. But a Fort Valley State alum said that the federal government was hiring, and you'll forgive me, I won't disclose the agency, but the agency itself, they were hiring. And she told my parents, who then told me, and I applied. And after a very interesting interview, I was offered a position as a customer service representative, is how I started. My manager was also a Fort Valley alum, and 4 employees in the office I started in, Fort Valley alums. So if people tell you can't go places in Fort Valley, they're lying to you.
You're right about that, man. That's dope, man. That's amazing to see that how it trickled down, because I think back to myself and me getting ready to become a software engineer, and I'm getting ready to go through the interviewing process. I'm like nervous. I'm like, oh man, who's gonna be interviewing me? And my frat brother messages me and says, hey bro, I can't give you an interview, but I set it up for you. And I'm like, huh? Yeah. And he was like, yeah. And he went to Morgan State, and he's like, it's an HBCU thing, man. We got to make sure you get in here.
Exactly.
It made me feel like, man, like I'm so excited to have it. So I was glad I was able to do it as well now. So the fact that anytime I can lift somebody else up, I definitely quickly say, like, I'm just happy to be an HBCU grad, but I'm also able to bring you in and get you to get in here and get this job.
Exactly.
Just give me about $3, man. We good to go. That's what I want. Like, just $3, yeah, just $3.
Just 3. 1, 2, 3.
But no.
I get it though. You gotta uplift HBCUs. If you went to one, you understand. Mm-hmm. But the reputation of HBCUs, we can't pretend like everybody everywhere just goes, yeah, HBCUs. So it's up to us to say, yes, HBCUs. You can go, to me, I feel like you can go to the same place going to an HBCU as you can go into a PWI. Mm-hmm. Your networks may be different, but that doesn't mean that different has to be that your networks are negative and will hold you back in some way. They haven't for me.
Me either, man. And I always use my motto, find a way to make one, man. And when that comes in, I definitely know I can hit anyone up from Clark and be like, hey, man, all right, man, y'all did this. Okay, cool. I need y'all to come on the show. And they be like, oh, man, me? I'm like, yeah, come on.
Right.
So it's definitely a big thing in that. So one of my next questions would be, what has been your favorite occupation thus far then?
So other than the job that I'm in, since it was a goal of mine to get into human resources, in 2016, while still in the agency that I work for, I was selected for a leadership development program. It's a year-long program where they actually promote you to the next grade up and allow you to kind of move into different offices so that you can get experiences outside of the position that you were in. While serving in that leadership program, I served as a trainer. So essentially, I was responsible for developing training content and providing live training regional. Oh, I say regional, that's not true. nationwide. So we've created policies and training for new hires under, trying to say this without giving away what I do, it was really for new hires within the country that were in a specific, how do I want to say, title of the agency that I work for. So that was crazy, but in like the best way. The team over there, they're still there. Most of the people that I worked with are still working in that same office in Atlanta, Georgia. And really that whole program, and specifically my time in that office, it just opened my mind to the possibilities of what I could do in my agency beyond what I started off doing. I had no idea the possibilities, and it just changed the trajectory of where I wanted to go and has ultimately led me where I am.
Yeah, so in leading to this now, since you new and fresh into this, and it's something that you always wanted to do you say that will play a role in you working in HR? And I think of my HR, they're very nice people, right? You know, they get to know stuff about us, and they can, in like our defense and offense at the same time. So would you say that you can play back into your psychology role of being in HR?
I will say, even though I did not really look at any of the positions that I've had in my agency as being psychology oriented, my degree has played a major role. I mean, anytime you're working with customer service, it helps to kind of have even the vaguest knowledge of how people think, because it will help you interact better, not just with your public, but with your coworkers. So in my case, my public are, that's my coworkers. That's what my public is now. And yes, it definitely helps to have a knowledge of psychology. It helps to have knowledge of generational background and how the different generations interact and work with each other, or at times don't work with each other. I think that aids a lot in just human interaction, period. Honestly, it's probably something that should be taught to everybody on maybe a high school or collegiate level before you go into the workplace. Hey, here's how a 62-year-old and an 18-year-old can work together in harmony.
You're right about that, because we have so many different ideals, especially
Exactly.
being in the tech world, and that's a whole nother conversation. But like,
Oh no, yeah, you're right about that.
I just like, I've been
Yeah.
doing this since the '90s, and it's like, you know what? It's Friday. I'm gonna talk to you on Monday.
Yeah, definitely requires patience on both sides.
Mhm.
But if you learn to, if both sides learn to listen, and this is not just with generations, we could break this down, right? Men, women, different races, different backgrounds. If you just learn to listen to each side, both sides can learn something and come up with something amazing that allows, both sides to feel like they were seen and felt and heard, So.
I respect that, man. You need to be my HR person. Come to you. No, man, that leads me to this though, the biggest question, man. So straight up, man, what made you get into podcasting and your podcast? Like, what does that give you, like outside of, 9 to 5?
So podcasting was this secret dream that I'd had for probably about maybe 5 years that I hadn't really shared with anybody. And one random day in, I think November maybe of 2020, Kelvin Bivens, he has a podcast, Words with KB. Everybody should check that out. He messaged me. We are Fort Valley alum. And he was telling me about a network he was putting together. And he just asked me, you should start a podcast. And I was like, I mean, but nobody would listen, which is, anytime anybody, has a dream or an idea, I want to write a book, I want to start a podcast, I want to start a business, your negative thought is going to be, nobody will buy my product, nobody will buy my book, nobody's going to listen to my podcast, right? Well, Kelvin said, well, I'll listen.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, you can't turn it down. If you say, if one person said they're going to listen, that has to be enough. You're not going to start off with, 30,000 listeners unless you're starting as Oprah and you're already Oprah, but I wasn't. So I had to be excited about the one person who said that they would listen that wasn't related to me by blood. Mm-hmm. And he offered the chance for me to, create a concept, and he would put it together with the audio, and I would be able to be included in the launch of his podcast network. And I never told anybody about my dream. Who was I to turn that down? I could have, but then the question would be, well, do you really want it? And I really, really wanted to start a podcast. So then it was a question about what would the podcast be about. At the time, I was helping people find their purpose. So would it be about that? Would it be about being an executive, or I was in management at the time? Would it be about that? Or would it be about travel? And of course, travel is probably my number two passion outside of writing. And it just made a lot of sense to go ahead and incorporate that passion, since it was something I was actively doing, or was, prior to COVID. And we just kind of sat down, brainstormed ideas about tones, flavors, other travel podcasts that were out there, came up with the name, and kind of just took off from there.
I love the name. We was in a meeting once before. We in both this network together, him.
Of course.
I say that to my listeners, of course. And just meeting you and hearing your thing, I was like, I'm gonna bring it on the show, man. I just love the name. Gotta go. I told my fiance about it. She's like, yeah, that's dope, man. And then the stuff the content that you post is needed. So we got to make sure that we keep each other growing, man. So that's one of my big reasons why I brought you on the show. Cause I was like, man, wait a minute. This the year 2022. I'm gonna start making some more things happen, So that's my plan, man. So in that, I would say, what is your it factor, man? Why you do what you do?
I truly feel like part of my purpose is to bring light, positivity to other people. Little short story. When I was younger, if I would, as a family, if we were walking through a store, department store, Walmart, restaurant, didn't matter, and I saw a woman who I thought just looked amazing. It could be her hair was nice, or her nails were pretty, or her dress was fabulous. I'm going to tell her she looks amazing, because every woman knows this. You put those clothes on for somebody, and usually it's not necessarily for some man. It's usually for some self. And compliments from women just feel different than compliments from men. So I just want every woman, I will say primarily women is what I focus with, to know that they have a light inside them that deserves to be turned on at all times. And when I would compliment the woman on, oh girl, your nails are amazing. Oh, that dress is fantastic. Ma'am, those shoes look amazing. Their whole face would light up. I mean, just light up, because they just got this random compliment from a stranger who they never met. And of course, I would feel the same way if people gave me those type of compliments. Also, because if there's two things that people have said about me my whole life, is one, that I'm smart, and two, that I'm nice. Everybody always says over and over that I'm nice. And when I was younger, I hated that. I didn't want to be nice. I just thought that was, I don't know, not enough or something. I wanted to be vivacious or something, But, now at 34, nice is everything. Nice goes a long way. In my career, I will say that it's my positive attitude that got me from where I started to where I am. Yes, I know the craft of my job, but on every recommendation, it always indicated that she will be able to get along with your office and people will gravitate to her because of her, quote, positive energy. So that's what led me to really, truly believe that that's part of my purpose, is to spread that positive energy, because there's, negative energy everywhere. So the least I can do is try to encourage, try to remind people that they are somebody, that they have a light that's inside them. And if they just remember to turn it on, you can use that light that's God-given to get you wherever you want to go. And I'll be your biggest cheerleader.
That's amazing, man. All right, man. Don't drop your facts in here. Let people know. Yeah, so, what is one of your ultimate life goals, man? Like, it can be outside of work, just life in general.
That's a good question. I'm trying to decide if I want to peek into my secret dreams, and if I want to vocalize some of those. One of my life goals would be to publish a book. What it would be on, I do not know. I will confess, I have written several books. They're just not published. I have some volumes of poetry that I could publish. I have romance novels that I could publish. But it's that fear of nobody would read it, even though I've been told people who would read it. It's just there's a fear of being able to do it. So I just have to go through the steps to actually publish. But I am actually working on 2 projects, and we'll see if I'm able to bring one of those goals to light.
Okay. All right, man. And if you need some help, let me know. Because I am an avid author myself. I'm a published
There
author.
you go. Exactly.
Book been out since 2018, and I have sold more than one copy. I sold
Yeah.
10 to 12.
Oh,
And the thing that I think about is we always told not to brag on ourselves and things of that nature, but I don't see it as
right.
bragging. I see it
Right.
as saying like, hey, I did it. I know you can do it too. So this is me saying, hey, I know you can do it. I'm writing a book. I'm in the process of writing another book now.
Mhm.
And I would say, man, pick that book out because I'll definitely buy it. I buy it. My fiance will support it, and I know Kevin will support it. So them three people
Yeah.
already, so
Exactly.
because it's needed to be out. Man. It's a legacy. Every time I write a book, I feel like I'm leaving something behind that can't be taken away. So I definitely commend you for that and then do that, man. I love authors, man. I love authors. So, and I would say, do you have any questions for me?
Let's see. What do you think your purpose is?
My purpose. Oh, wow. It's a good question. I think my purpose is, and I was thinking about it the other weekend. I brought some of my college friends together, right, to come onto the podcast, and it was amazing. We caught up. We hadn't seen each other in a while, and it made me. I sat back and I looked. How you have like an out of body experience. That's what I was feeling on the sofa asking questions. Like everything's going good, but I'm like, I really can bring people together. Like I feel like God has blessed me with a gift to connect and bring, people together. So I think one of my gifts and one of my life goals and purposes is to, bring people together and bring that change that I want to see, in the world. So I definitely believe that's my purpose right there. At least one of them. I feel like we have multiple, but I feel like that's one of them. And I've been able to do it in the podcast world. And just to see those guys' faces, man, it just blew me like, oh man, like, and they was telling me like about the podcast. Yeah, I know this about, and you did. I remember you did this episode with the lady, and it's like, thank you, bro. Like I didn't know how much as a person you need that. I'm like, I really can bring people together because we ain't seen each other in 3-4 years. Like so, yeah. So it was amazing. I definitely think that's my purpose.
Huh. Well, that is definitely a good purpose to have. Community. You got to be able to bring people together. You
Yeah,
need that person to be able to facilitate that community. So,
right, right. So yeah, I definitely think that's my thing. And lastly, I would say, how could the people find you, man? Like your podcast and things of that nature.
so at present, my podcast is featured on Instagram at Prepare for Landing Pod.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll have all different pictures. We're talking about season 2, preparing for a season 2 of the podcast. But in the meantime, while we're working on it, I publish regular travel tips, travel updates. As we learn more about the virus and how it's impacting travel, I post stories about that as well. So that is where you can check me out. Season 1 is, of course, completely done and published. You can find Prepare for Landing podcast on all major platforms: Amazon, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to your podcast. I am there. You can also find the link in the bio at Prepare for Landing Pod on Instagram.
Yes. Oh, so thank you, man. It's the show, man. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Of course.
Building this network together, man. I definitely look forward to talking to you more often now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Looking forward to it as well. Thank you for having me.
All right, Dan. Well, I'll talk to you soon.